Christine is a story of obsession, fixation, and the gradual loss of oneself. But Stephen King not only captures the personal struggle of a victim beholden to uncontrollable urges, he depicts the helplessness of friends and family members, forced to watch as someone they love spirals their way deeper into inescapable self-destruction. Hi there, I'm your host, Mr. Doyle, and this is a great undertaking. My unending pursuit of covering all of Stephen King's massive bibliography and all that it has inspired continues today with the 1983 novel Christine. This is an old favorite of mine that begs the question, what if a haunted house, but instead it's a car? Frankly, I used to think this was a fun read, a high-octane thrill ride, pun intended, that's unconventional, unpredictable, and exciting. And yeah, it is all of those things. But as I mentioned earlier, the story is about a great deal more than just a boy and his killer car. Christine, a brief synopsis. Arnie Cunningham is a nobody. An acne-faced nerd who is bullied at school, disparaged by his overbearing mother at home, and is ultimately an unpopular, unremarkable young man. That is until he discovers Christine, a disheveled rust bucket of a car, and he becomes overwhelmingly infatuated with her. Arnie sets out to restore Christine to her former glory, but what he doesn't initially realize is that when he purchased Christine from her previous owner, he bought into a lot more than a set of wheels. He gradually gives himself over to the dark power that inhabits the car, causing Christine to transform him from a pitiful pushover to an unstable aggressor. Eventually, she comes between him and those who are trying desperately to save him, causing Arnie to lose everything when he finally relinquishes control to Christine and the destructive forces that inhabit her. History and inspiration. This is the rare occasion that I was able to find a direct quote from King in regards to what sparked his imagination and caused him to write one of his novels. This passage comes directly from Stephen King's official website. It reads as follows. One night as I was turning into my driveway, I saw the odometer numbers on my car turn from 9,999.9 to 10,000. I found myself wondering if there might not be a story in an odometer that ran backward. The car, I thought, would get younger instead of older, finally collapsing into its component parts. The next day I started writing it. I thought it would be a funny short story, a kind of American graffiti. Instead, a fairly long novel came out, a supernatural tale about girlfriends, boyfriends, and Christine. That's pretty straightforward, but from the way King tells it, Christine turned out to be a great deal different and a great deal more than he had anticipated when he set out to write the story. A haunted car? A haunted car seems pretty far-fetched at first glance, right? Maybe more than just a bit ridiculous. A great many King critics felt this way about the basis for Christine and felt King was starting to come up with some real harebrained ideas. And yeah, in reality, it's cuckoo bananas nonsense. At least it is to anyone who doesn't believe in ghosts and the like. But when you apply the same logic and standards as a haunted house or a talismanic object, it's no less believable or practical when viewed through a fictional lens. In Christine, like King's earlier works, specifically Salem's Lot and The Shining, there are tragedies and traumas that have occurred within the confines of a particular space which have led to psychic and paranormal consequences. In the case of Salem's Lot, there is the Marston House, what protagonist Ben Mears refers to as Hubert Marston's monument to evil, And in The Shining, it's the Overlook Hotel that has become a host to malignant, malevolent spirits who have caused or endured grave tragedy there. In other stories, authors have used objects such as dolls, jewelry, clothing, and various other inanimate items as talismans, which capture and emanate either the tortured souls of victims or the evil essence of a villainous monster. In each case, the contemptuous, villainous acts or tragedies which have occurred within the walls of a specific location, or the events which have occurred to the owner of an object, have caused these places and things to become corrupted and possessed. And that is precisely what has happened to Christine. I'll refrain from specifics for those who have yet to read the story, but the car has likewise absorbed the tragedies it was essentially a silent witness to, and consequently Christine outwardly radiates evil and tragedy. So yeah, if you apply the same logic to the car that you would apply to a haunted house or object, it makes perfect sense. Christine is both a haunted house and a possessed talisman on wheels. The Addict Analogy. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Christine is more than just a ghost story. Throughout the book, we bear witness to the gradual deterioration of Arnie's physical and mental health. As his obsession with Christine intensifies, he becomes more and more unhinged. He lies to his friends and loved ones about where he has been and what he's been up to. He lashes out when he is confronted about his increasingly erratic behavior. He becomes unrecognizable to those closest to him. He is in denial about his problem, and when he is finally able to admit to himself that he is in trouble, he finds that he doesn't have the strength to fight against the forces that have sunk their hooks into him. These warning signs and characteristics are all too familiar to anyone who's been close to or cared for someone who has dealt with drug or alcohol addiction. I've had the displeasure of witnessing this exact behavior from a few close friends who developed addictions to prescription drugs, and Arnie's gradual change and degradation is practically identical to their stories. An addict will often try to hide the truth, even when the truth is obvious to both of you. They lie, con, and try to manipulate you, knowing it's wrong, but unable to stop themselves. They're simultaneously unrepentant and ashamed, equal parts deceitful and helpless. They're no longer in control of their actions, no longer capable of doing what they know is right, and instead doing everything they can to rationalize and excuse their behavior. They gradually become someone else. They betray your trust, and they know it hurts you, yet the steps they would need to take to reestablish your relationship or salvage your friendship feel insurmountable. So they continue down their path of debasement regardless of what they want. The people closest to Arnie do everything in their power to save him, but despite their best efforts, he is beyond saving. Things have gone too far. That is often how stories of addiction play out. Sometimes no amount of help or support is enough to save the ones we love from their demons. Our best efforts are often thwarted by forces beyond our understanding or control, and no matter how hard we try, we can't reach these people. We can't get through because the power that has seized control is somehow stronger than our desperate efforts and more relentless than the will of the person we so badly wish we could save. Final thoughts. Christine is a heart-wrenching book that packs a great deal of action and excitement as well, so it makes for a well-balanced, dynamic read. Sure, it has an unconventional premise and is assuredly bizarre, but if you're willing to suspend your disbelief and take the ride, it's both an enjoyable and harrowing story. Next week, I'll be taking a look at the 1983 film adaptation of Christine, which was released the same year as the novel and is one of my personal favorite 80s King movies. New videos drop on this channel every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so Poke the subscriber bell with your slippery nipples to get notifications. Okay, goodbye. Be sure to click like and subscribe to the channel for my continued analysis of all things Stephen King, pretty pleased with blood and guts on top. My name is Mr. Doyle, and this has been a great undertaking.